Zelda's 35th anniversary continues to be a divisive topic online amongst gamers, as you have a whole section of the internet that thinks that Nintendo has truly forgotten about one of their favorite franchises, and that is the Legend of Zelda series, and they're not going to be doing anything to celebrate the 35th anniversary, and that Skyward Sword and the special edition Joy-Cons are actually the only thing that we're going to be seeing. Well, in today's video, we're talking about why I don't think that's the case, and I want to dive into one title specifically that I do think will come out at some point on the Switch and hopefully be a 35th anniversary celebration title, and that's none other than Ocarina of Time HD. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now today, guys, it's going to be a special trip down memory lane for me, as I'm going to be discussing one of my all-time favorite Zelda games, and really the first Zelda game that truly got me into the series, and that is none other than Ocarina of Time, and I'm going to make a case for why I think we will see Nintendo absolutely do its own dedicated HD remaster for this title at some point. Now, an argument that comes up online a lot when you talk about an Ocarina of Time remake is that we've already seen this done in the version of the 3DS HD up-res, so they basically did new textures and they did a better resolution, but of course that was only playable in handheld mode on a 3DS. Now, if you get this game on an emulator and you up-res it yourself, it looks incredible, and that is one way that I do think we can see Nintendo bring this over to the Switch, would be as probably a collection pack with this game and Majora's Mask, as they both work hand in hand together and they've both been HD remastered on the 3DS already. So while I do think that's one option that Nintendo could absolutely take and go and really do well with, I still think you could make a case for, because of how pivotal of a title this was for the Zelda franchise, as it was the first 3D Zelda ever, I do think Nintendo could absolutely go ahead and do a from the ground up HD remaster again, and it could even be a Grezzo title for the Switch, and we may get graphical style, maybe not cel shaded like Breath of the Wild, but you know, in the same engine as like a Breath of the Wild, but just with different graphic textures for Ocarina of Time HD. And that's what I think I want to talk about today, is if Nintendo does do that, what would it look like and what could we expect? Because we've already seen fan-made projects like in Unreal Engine, and while I don't think we'll get one that looks like that on the Switch, I do think that Nintendo could put a lot more love, time, and care into remaking this game from the ground up, and I want to talk about why it needs to be done. So the first reason I think this absolutely has to be done at some point on the Nintendo Switch is that there is an entire generation of gamers that never got to play this pivotal classic in the series, and that is primarily because we didn't see the huge successful sales numbers for Zelda titles like we've seen for the most recent release, which was Breath of the Wild. And to give you guys an idea, Breath of the Wild sold over 21 million copies on the Switch alone, and previous to that game, the highest selling Zelda game ever was actually Twilight Princess, coming in around 9 million copies. So that's obviously a huge discrepancy there, and there is a whole section of gamers that never got to go back and play the beginning of the 3D Zelda adventure, and that's why I think it can be justified to say that you have to go ahead and remake this first adventure from the ground up and give it the full visual treatment that fans would absolutely love to see. Now, Nintendo can obviously go the easy route and just release at some point, maybe on Switch Online, do like their N64 console playable titles, and we may see Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask maybe come over that way. I personally hope that we don't see that happen. I would be okay with being able to play those in their original form at some point, but I think that this is a big enough title that before they add those in for online playability, I think it's more important to slow down and do the remake from the ground up, as this was honestly one of the games that set the groundwork for all 3D adventure games, not just Zelda titles, going forward, as lock-on targeting was brand new, circling around enemies, jumping back. I mean, all of that stuff was created for the first time in this game that was originally released in 1998. So if you can imagine that, I know there's some fans that say this has already been done in the 3DS, why do we need it again redone on the Switch? Well, My argument is that this is such a pivotal title to the entire Zelda franchise that I think that because there's people who haven't played it out there, and there's hardcore fans like me that would just love to play it with even better visuals than what we saw on the 3DS, because you have to think about on the visuals that they designed for the 3DS was designed to run on a handheld only hardware. We now have a hybrid console that obviously can go handheld, but downscales to 720p, and then whenever you have a console docked, you could probably get a good 1080p 30 frames per second, hopefully even 60 frames per second out of the Switch with a Ocarina of Time game built from the ground up. So I do think that you can make a case that this should be done. Now, the other reason that I think that we need to have it done is there is a lot of fans that, because of Breath of the Wild, they think that most Zelda games are all kind of non-linear and you can just go do whatever you want in any order. And while I do really enjoy the open world Zelda experience, there's a big part of me that misses the traditional dungeon exploration and really themed dungeons, because while I loved Breath of the Wild, one of the things that I thought it was missing is the unique dungeons that you see. And so from the child storyline and then into the adult storyline, you literally have like 9 different dungeons you go through in this game, and they're all themed around different elements and different environments, which I think is incredible. And I think it's something that's missing from the Zelda formula now, and it's something I hope we see come back in Breath of the Wild 2. But really no game, in my opinion, did these themed dungeons and did it in this order better than Ocarina of Time. I still think that that's one that holds the standard when it comes to the most exciting dungeons and the most unique themes around these dungeons. And so I think we have to have gamers go through that and experience for the first time that haven't. And then I also would love to see things like the Spirit Temple, the Shadow Temple, even the Water Temple, as much as that's a tricky one. I would love to see what those would look like with brand new visuals that are even more upgraded than what we saw on the 3DS version. Another very important reason that we need to see Ocarina of Time come over to the Switch is that this is a pivotal title in the entire franchise, considering that it's the first one that the timeline split. So if you guys have looked into how the Zelda games connect at all in terms of which one comes first and then the other ones, you'll know that the timeline actually gets split into 3 different paths after this game. So if it's one that you haven't played, it's obviously one you need to go back and play to understand the real implications of what happened from Link pulling out the Master Sword. And I just think Nintendo could give so much more love to this story now that we know kind of where all these Zelda games fall in the timeline, because at that point in time, I don't know that Miyamoto really was, planning them out as all being connected or not. But later on, because of fan speculation and because people wanted to know how these games fit together, Nintendo has since released an official Zelda timeline on how these games connect, and Ocarina of Time is absolutely the pivotal title that makes that split happen. So I do think that's another reason that if you haven't played it yet, or if you just want to go re-experience it, and also maybe Nintendo could even go slow down and add in more story elements than what we saw the first time, I would not be opposed to that either, now that we know that this is the pivotal game in the timeline for the entire series. So I mean, there's plenty of reasons to see Nintendo re-release this thing as even a standalone $60 title. I do think it can sell as that, while I do still kind of tend to lean more towards my prediction being that this will come in a double pack on the 3DS instead. And it's going to be something that the 3DS versions are what's ported to the Switch in a double pack, and that's what's $60, and it's Ocarina of Time and it's also Majora's Mask. I think that's probably most likely, but I really hope that Nintendo does at some point give this its full HD remaster, because I think it's one of the biggest titles in the series that deserves its own spotlight once again, almost more than any other Zelda, because of what it accomplished as a whole for the series. I would really love to know your guys' opinions on what you're expecting from Nintendo to do with Ocarina of Time specifically, and if you think it will be in a double pack re-released on the 3DS, or if you think it will actually just be its own standalone from the ground up remaster at $60, kind of like we talked about in this video today. So please leave me that in the comments down below. I'm also going to be creating a poll around if you guys think that we will see more Zelda 35th announcements to come in the year of 2021, or if you're in the camp where you think that Nintendo is simply not celebrating it and we won't get future Zelda announcements this year, and we probably won't see anything else until later on. I would love to know where you guys land on that topic, because as I've said, I see comments that go both ways. So please check out the poll in the community tab before you head out, and make sure that you share your thoughts on Ocarina of Time Remaster HD coming as a standalone title to the Switch or not, or if you think we'll see it in the 3DS bundle pack like it could be with Majora's Mask. Thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. I do truly appreciate you all sticking around until the end. I do at this point in the video want to invite you all one more time to join Sunbro Nation if you haven't done so already. Do so by subscribing below, hit the like button on your way out on this video if you enjoyed it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Guys, that's going to do it for me. I hope you all have a great day. Sunbro Nation,